You would never knowingly, intentionally inflict pain upon yourself, would you? What if, because your childhood was so painful, because you were raised in survival with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and actually you learned an unconscious belief that you are unworthy, that you deserve to be hurt. You learned this dynamic of masochism within yourself. You learned that because you deserve to be hurt, therefore you are to seek pain within yourself and within relationships. The compulsive reality of the unconscious self shows us that because we learned a dynamic of pain in childhood, and repetition compulsion is within us the unconscious drive to keep the comfortable and familiar emotional dynamics of childhood alive. We are now just bringing that into adulthood. We're unaware of it. But there is this underlying belief of unworthiness, of a deserving to be hurt, deserving to hurt the self, deserving to do things in relationships that would cause pain to the self. You can't resist it. There's this deep urge to just hurt, to feel pain regularly within yourself, within your relationships. That is the learned dynamic from childhood. It is unconscious, because if you were instead aware of it, you wouldn't do it. No, of course not. Who consciously looks at themselves and says, I deserve to be in pain regularly. I deserve to hurt. I deserve to hurt myself. I deserve to put myself in situations in life that hurt me. I deserve to have relationships that are very painful. I don't believe that anybody in their conscious mind would actually believe that. Like, imagine somebody being consciously aware and saying to themselves, I deserve to be hurt. This is the reality of masochism. I deserve to be in pain. Interesting. Well, no, of course, that's just a belief that was learned in the survival-based childhood with fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Doesn't mean it's true. If you were raised in a healthy childhood, you wouldn't have an unconscious belief that you deserve to be hurt. Now, the fascinating thing about this whole thing is that it is unconscious. You don't question it because you're not aware of it. You don't question your unworthiness because you're not aware of it. You just put yourself in relationships with people that reinforce your belief of unworthiness. It hurts, it's painful, but it's still there. It hurts, it's painful, but you're not conscious of it, so therefore you're not asking yourself, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I choosing to be in pain in relationships? No, you're not asking that question because you're unaware of it. What we are unaware of will drive our lives. The unconscious here is the thing to look at. The compulsive behavior, the irresistibility, I think I said that right, the urge, the drive to inflict pain in one's life. The only way that this could be possible is if you learned a belief in childhood that you regularly deserve to be violated. You regularly deserve to violate yourself. You deserve to hurt yourself. You deserve to be in pain. But people live this way as long as they have this unconscious belief that they deserve to be hurt. Like, imagine becoming aware, like, oh my goodness, I've been hurting myself in many different ways, including relationships with people that are unhealthy, that violate my boundaries, because I learned a belief in childhood that I deserve to be hurt. And let me make it very clear, too, that it is actually a wild awakening. Like, imagine spending decades of your life with this, like, urge, this drive, this what you are unaware of as an unconscious, it speaks for itself, an unconscious drive to cause pain in your life. And then to all of a sudden wake up. And when I say that, what I'm referring to is, like, metaphorically. It's not like you wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I've been hurting myself my whole life. I mean, it could be. But, like, imagine that you are to, like, have, like, an awakening where you're like, oh, wow, I learned a belief in childhood that I deserve to be hurt. I learned a masochistic dynamic within myself, and I've just been inflicting pain in whatever way it may be. The learned belief that that is normal. I use the word normal because a lot of people approach it from that standpoint. It's absolutely not healthy. Absolutely not. And again, I will reiterate the empathy and compassion here that I have for people, because I have a lot of it. And it's just so fascinating to see people go from unconscious to conscious. It's so fascinating to see people go from this compulsive dynamic within the unconscious. You're going to be compulsive about it. It's going to be irresistible. It's going to be an urge because you're unaware of it. You're unaware that you believe that you are unworthy, and therefore you choose people that reinforce that wound. There is an unconscious wound of unworthiness, and it is creating dynamics that are unhealthy in your life because you are choosing individuals, you are choosing relationships that are painful, that are damaging, that are completely violating and obliterating. Again, I'll say it. There is a wound of unworthiness that started probably in childhood, and it is creating unhealthy dynamics in your life. And I'm not saying that this is specifically applied to you. If this is not the video for you, okay, no problem. Send it off to the person you think it might work for. I'm not trying to say that this is me speaking to anybody that's watching this, but the likelihood that this is for you, if you clicked on this, is pretty high. Do you have a belief within yourself of unworthiness? Do you have a belief within yourself that you deserve to be in pain, in emotional pain? Do you have a belief that you deserve to inflict pain on yourself and you deserve to put yourself in relationships with people that are unhealthy? This is the approach that can help people become conscious of what is unconscious. Have you been irresistibly going after things that are actually painful because you believe that you deserve to be hurt? Has there been like this, maybe it's even a subconscious drive. I would argue that it's unconscious. You have to be probably severely unaware of what's going on for it to take place, because if you were conscious of it, it wouldn't be there. If you were conscious of the fact that you were avoiding emotional pain, you wouldn't be doing it. Well, I guess that's not entirely fair to say, because some people just still have a very difficult time with emotional pain and therefore they choose to avoid it. If you were conscious of the fact that you were avoiding emotional pain, you would approach it differently. You would probably approach it with a, I don't want to say playful manner, because it's not really a playful thing, much more of a curious manner. If I stop avoiding emotional pain, what will happen? If I stop avoiding emotional pain, how will my life change? The fascinating thing, though, is that this compulsive nature of the unconscious self also drives an individual into further pain when they're in avoidance of emotional pain. They might avoid emotional pain by getting into a relationship with somebody that is unhealthy. And that in and of itself further causes more pain in the individual's life. And I've really been thinking about it lately. I've been thinking about how often people get into relationships to avoid themselves, to avoid emotions, painful emotions. It's just something that I've been kind of like reflecting on for a few days now. It's fascinating. And it doesn't matter what type of relationship it is. It does usually tend to be like romantic relationships and everything. But it's so fascinating. It really is. It really is. Is there within you a dynamic of like drive, of compulsiveness, of urge to do things that hurt you? And understanding that this is the reality of pain inflicted on the self, probably from somebody else in childhood. And it basically turned into an unconscious dynamic. It was normalized in the person's life very early on and never really questioned. You know, that's the fascinating thing about childhood, is that for people that were raised in survival-based childhoods, because of how just exceedingly fucked up everything turns out, you kind of just like accept it as normal. You don't really put it into question and think, huh, that was fucking weird. You just kind of live with it and continue to recreate it, which is exactly what repetition compulsion is. The unconscious repeating of a painful but comfortable and familiar past. That's what it is. It is totally compulsive to stay in pain. No, I do not deserve to feel good. I have to stay in pain because that's what my childhood communicated to me. But that in and of itself is a dynamic, is an understanding that is not known to the conscious self, because the conscious self is not there, because the evolution had not taken place yet. You can't see what is unconscious. You will not be aware of what is unconscious because it is unconscious. It is not in the forefront. You know, like if the warning flag, hey, what are you doing? You're hurting yourself. Don't do that. That doesn't happen. It's literally just like the action, and then there's pain. Yep, that's normal. Like the message pops up. Yep, that's normal. Yep, that's childhood. Yep, that's comfortable and familiar. No, you are not worthy. No, you are not worthy of love. It's like for people that are doing this, they're not even aware of what healthy love is. Because if they were, they would probably stop doing this and they would probably start seeking dynamics of healthy love. They would probably start doing the work on themselves and they would seek dynamics of healthy love. It's so fascinating. It really is. This is the compulsive nature and reality of the unconscious self. Understanding that the unconscious self is that basically had to survive in a survival-based childhood with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and just unconsciously learned a belief that drove it its entire life, that it deserves to be in pain regularly. And what you are unaware of, you are unaware of. If you are unaware that you believe that you deserve to be hurt and regularly in pain with yourself, inflicting this pain on yourself and choosing relationships that do the same, you're not going to do anything to change it. You're not even going to like bat an eye to it and be like, oh, that's unhealthy. No, you don't know. You don't even know what you're doing. You just believe that relationships are that way, and that's the way that they're supposed to be. There's no such thing as anything else. That is why understanding the unconscious dynamic of this. Like imagine it this way. When something is unconscious, it basically means that you are unaware of it, that you can't see it. Imagine that there's actually something in front of me right now that I cannot see. That is like a metaphorical detail of that which is unconscious. If you can't see it, you don't know that it exists. If you believe that all that there is painful dynamics out there in life, you're not going to try to change that. All that you believe is that that's what's normal. that that's just how the world works and that relationships are. What you cannot see, you cannot change. What you cannot see, you cannot choose. It's wild, isn't it?